Hi everyone! It's time to start Chapter 7, Diana Barry. How do you like them? Asked Marilla. Anne was looking at 3 new dresses spread out on her bed. Marilla had gone to the store, picked out fabric, and sewn them herself to replace Anne's plain, ugly orphanage dress. The trouble was, the new dresses were all ugly and plain too. I'll imagine that I like them, said Anne, finally. I don't want you to imagine it, said Marilla, offended. I can see you don't like the dresses. What's wrong with them? They're not pretty, said Anne, as carefully as she could. Pretty, said Marilla. These are good, sensible dresses. I should think you'd be grateful to get anything after that awful thing you've been wearing. Oh, I am grateful, said Anne. But I'd be ever so much gratefuler if just one had puff sleeves. Puff sleeves are so fashionable. It'd give me such a thrill to wear a dress with puffed sleeves. Well, you'll have to do without your thrill, came the reply. Now choose the least ugly dress and put it on. I'm going to Orchard Slope to borrow a recipe from Mrs. Barry. If you'd like, you can come along and meet Diana. Oh, Marilla, I'm frightened, said Anne as they walked through the grove of fir trees between Green Gables and Orchard Slope. What if Diana doesn't like me? It would be the most tragical disappointment of my life. Now don't get into a fluster, said Marilla, and stop trembling. Diana will like you fine. It's her mother you got to worry about. If she doesn't like you, it won't matter how much Diana does. Just be polite and behave yourself. How do you do, Marilla? Asked Mrs. Barry cordially at the door. And this is the little girl you adopted, I suppose? Yes, this is Anne Shirley, said Marilla. Anne spelled with an E, gasped Anne, who, frightened as she was, wanted to be very clear on that point. Mrs. Barry must not have heard her, for she simply took Anne's hand and said, How are you? I am well in body, but somewhat rumpled in spirit. Then to Marilla she whispered, There wasn't anything startling in that, was there? This is my daughter Diana, said Mrs. Barry, nodding toward a pretty girl nearby. Diana, why don't you take Anne outside and show her your flowers? The 2 girls went outside. For a while they stood bashfully gazing at Diana's beautiful columbines, daffodils, Scotch roses, peonies, and others. Usually a garden this lovely would have excited Anne to distraction, but today she was too anxious. Finally, she almost whispered, Oh, Diana, do you think you could like me enough to be my bosom friend? Diana laughed. She always laughed before she spoke. Why, I guess so, she said. I'm so glad you've come to live at Green Gables. There are no other girls who live close by, and my sisters are all too young. Anne took Diana's hands, and they swore an oath to be friends forever. You're a strange girl, said Diana. I heard that you were strange, but I believe I'm going to like you real well. When it was time for Marilla and Anne to go home, Diana went with them halfway. The 2 girls walked with their arms around each other. After they had parted, Marilla asked Anne, Well, did you find Diana to be a kindred spirit? Oh, yes, sighed Anne, unaware that Marilla was teasing her a little. I'm the very happiest girl on Prince Edward Island at this moment. When they got home, Anne's cup of happiness was full to the brim, and Matthew caused it to overflow. He had just returned from town. He reached into his pocket and handed her a small bag. I heard you like chocolates, Anne, so I got you some, he smiled shyly. Grunted Marilla. It will ruin her teeth and stomach. You ought to bring her peppermints. They're healthier. Well, go ahead, Anne. You may eat them as long as Matthew has already bought them. I'll eat only one now, and save the rest to share with Diana tomorrow, said Anne. Later, after Anne had gone up to her gable room, Marilla sat down, exhausted. I'll say this for the child, she told Matthew. She isn't stingy. I'm glad, for I can't stand stinginess in a child. Dear me, it's only just over a week since she came, and it seems as if she's always been here. Matthew just smiled mildly at his sister. Now, don't you go telling me I told you so, she shot back. I admit that I'm glad I agreed to keep the child, and I am getting fond of her. But don't you rub it in, Matthew Cuthbert.